Star Wars: The Last Jedi. If you're anything like me, when you hear those words, you'll find yourself wincing as you remember the dark times. The Last Jedi is a movie with lots of problems, one of them being Finn and Rose's trip to Canto Bight. This subplot felt completely disconnected from the overarching story and in my opinion was desperate for better editing to make it work. In this video we'll look at what went wrong, how the pacing, tone and cuts derailed the whole thing, and of course how it could have been saved with just a few smarter choices. The pacing of the Canto Bight subplot is terrible. We've got the Resistance on the brink of destruction, ships being blown out the sky, and yet we spend a ridiculous amount of time watching Finn and Rose run around a casino, looking at the rich people, and getting sidetracked with side quests like freeing space horses. Every minute we spend here grinds the momentum of the movie to a halt. Now let's look at how The Empire Strikes Back handles the Falcon's escape from Hoth. The editing here is really sharp. Every shot of Han and Leia trying to outrun the Empire is cut with just enough time for the tension to build. The scene constantly cuts between the Falcon dodging Star Destroyers and TIE Fighters, which maintains the pace of the movie. Then we switch to Luke training with Yoda on Dagobah and the editors don't linger for too long. The editing ensures while Luke's storyline is slower, you never forget the high stakes pursuit that's happening elsewhere. They used quick cuts to break up the Dagobah scenes, cutting back to the Falcon being hunted. The editing in Empire Strikes Back was paced to perfection. The moment things on Dagobah slowed down too much, the film would jump back to Han and Leia dodging asteroids. The cross-cutting kept the tension alive and reminded the audience that no matter what, the Empire was always a looming threat. Now going back to The Last Jedi, Canto Bight should have felt like Finn and Rose were in a race against time, instead of showing them just leisurely strolling through the casino taking in the scenery. These scenes needed cutting. They should have just walked in, immediately recognised that they're out of place and get to work. The editors could have used tighter cuts to show them navigating through the crowd, searching for the codebreaker and constantly looking over their shoulders as if time's running out. And between all of this have constant cross-cutting to the Resistance ships being blown out of the sky. And when Finn and Rose run into obstacles like getting caught and thrown in jail, the editing should cut away from them at moments of tension. Cut right when they're captured to the Resistance, who are also in a dire situation, amplifying the pressure. Their mission needs to feel like if they fail right now, the Resistance will be wiped out. That's how you edit for urgency. Empire Strikes Back mastered this by never letting the audience forget that the Millennium Falcon was always just moments away from being destroyed, and the same technique should have been applied here. At the end of the day, the whole Canto Bight mission just feels like a massive waste of time. Finn and Rose don't even get the codebreaker they need, and when they do find someone, he betrays them. There's no sense of progression or payoff. The entire sequence just feels like a waste of screen time with no significant impact on the overall plot. In Empire, Lando's betrayal is devastating because the editing builds up to it and it makes it feel like a turning point in the plot. Throughout the Cloud City scenes, the editing hints that something is off, that something isn't quite right. There are subtle reaction shots of Lando looking conflicted and quick cuts to the worried faces of Leia and Chewie. When Lando turns Han Solo and the others over to Vader, it feels like a gut punch because the editing created the tension and dread leading up to that moment. We see the consequences of Lando's betrayal immediately because Han Solo is captured, tortured and frozen in carbonite. The entire movie shifts because of this betrayal. The editing in The Last Jedi should have made Finn and Rose's failure sting, but instead we don't really feel the consequences of their failure. To fix this, I'd start by building up more tension leading up to DJ's betrayal. The moment they decide to trust him, I'd include quick uneasy glances between Finn and Rose. You could even show some brief moments where DJ's actions seem suspicious, but cut away before you fully know what's happening. Build the audience's anxiety, make them feel like something bad is about to happen. And when DJ betrays them, the editing needs to make it hurt. Cut immediately from the betrayal to the Resistance suffering a massive blow as a result of it. Ships being destroyed, lives lost. Make us feel the direct consequences of their failure, just like how Empire made us feel the weight of Han's capture immediately after Lando betrayed them. Moving on to the tone of Canto Bight, which is just completely off. The rest of the movie is dealing with the desperation of the Resistance's last stand, and then we suddenly get this bright, goofy casino world with weird aliens and BB-8 spitting out coins and an actual space horse race. What's going on? It feels like you've stumbled into a cartoon inside a war movie. The tonal shift is so extreme that it just pulls you out of the movie entirely. Return of the Jedi is a great example of how to balance light and dark tones without compromising the stakes in the story. Even with the presence of the Ewoks, which provide comic relief, the movie never loses its sense of urgency and danger. The editing ensures that the humour doesn't overstay its welcome. The tone of the movie seamlessly shifts during the Battle of Endor. While the Ewoks are causing problems for the the Empire, the movie frequently cuts back to the Rebels' attack on the Death Star and Luke confronting Vader. This cross-cutting prevents the lighter moments with the Ewoks from taking over the film's emotional core. When it comes to the Canto Bight scenes in The Last Jedi, first things first, cut down on the slapstick comedy nonsense. The BB-8 scene where he's used as a slot machine and spits out coins? Yeah, completely unnecessary, get rid of that. Then tone down the overly bright fantasy feel of Canto Bight by cutting out the long lingering shots of Finn and Rose looking at the rich aliens. Those moments feel like they're trying too hard to be clever or funny, and they don't belong in a movie where the Resistance is literally being obliterated in space. Instead, introduce a more darker tone to Canto Bight by focusing more on the shady, darker, criminal side of the planet. Quick cuts to dodgy dealings and whispers in the background and worried glances as Finn and Rose sneak around. And like Return of the Jedi, cut frequently between Canto Bight and the Resistance's desperate fight to survive, so we never lose sight of the stakes. The goofy, light-hearted tone can't overshadow the life or death situation happening elsewhere. Let's talk about the Space Horse race, or the fathier chase, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's an overly long, unnecessary action scene that does nothing to move the plot forward. We get it, Finn and Rose are freeing the animals, we understand, but we really didn't need to spend 5 minutes on a chase scene through the streets. This is Star Wars, not Free Willy. Now look at how Return of the Jedi handles its speeder bike chase on Endor. The editing here is tight and efficient. The sequence here is fast-paced and thrilling, but it's not overly long. The team knew exactly how long to linger on each shot to build excitement without overstaying its welcome. Every cut in the speeder bike chase is placed with purpose. It keeps the action moving forwards and maintains tension without dragging the movie down. The Space Horse chase needed to be cut drastically. Start by cutting the sequence in half. Instead of 5 minutes of aimless running about, we get 2 minutes. 2 minutes tops. Focus on the key moments. Finn and Rose make their escape, free the animals, and have a brief chase before finding a way out. Remove most of the wide, sweeping shots of the chase, focusing instead on tight, intense close-ups that build a sense of urgency. We don't need to see every single turn or jump, just enough to get the point across. Like the speeder bike chase in Return of the Jedi, this sequence should be fast, punchy, and to the point. And finally, let's talk about Finn and that character development that he didn't get. He's supposed to be grappling with his place in the Resistance, but the movie never really gives him a real moment to reflect on that. Instead, Finn spends most of the time on Canto Bight reacting to the things happening around him, with no real internal growth or development. In Return of the Jedi, Luke's internal struggle is central to the story, and the movie constantly reinforces this. For example, during Luke's final confrontation with Vader, the editing emphasizes Luke's hesitation, cutting between close-ups of his face and shots of Darth Vader taunting him. The movie uses editing to slow down key moments, allowing the audience to see Luke wrestle with his emotions and make a choice. Luke's arc is clear and defined because the movie gives us the space to experience his internal conflict. Finn's character arc needed to be way more than just tagging along with Rose. Like when Finn sees the luxurious lifestyle that the aliens on Canto Bight are living, there was an opportunity missed here to cut to flashbacks of his time with the First Order. Images of the cruelty he witnessed are in direct contrast to the wealth and luxury he's witnessing on Canto Bight. This would have created a visual and emotional contrast that pushes Finn's character arc forward, giving him a personal stake in the mission and making his eventual commitment to the Resistance feel earned and meaningful. The movie could have made his internal journey as important as the actual mission, giving the audience a chance to see Finn's growth throughout the film. To sum up, The Last Jedi demonstrates objectively poor filmmaking, particularly for the purposes of this video when it comes to the Canto Bight subplot, because the pacing was off, the tone was a mess, the storyline felt detached from the rest of the movie, and it failed to develop its characters in any meaningful way. Smart, strategic editing like we've seen in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi could have saved this subplot. Not the rest of the movie, but maybe that's a discussion for another day. By tightening up the pacing, balancing the tone, and focusing more on character development, this part of the movie could have been salvaged and made to feel like an essential piece of the overall story, instead of a pointless, boring side quest. Anyway guys, thank you for watching. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you again next time.